All right, Harry Potter, page 5. Get off me, Harry gasped. For a few seconds they struggled, Harry pulling his uncle's sausage-like fingers with his left hand, his right maintaining a firm grip on his raised wand. Then, the pain at the top of Harry's head gave a particularly nasty throb. Uncle Vernon yelped and released Harry as though he had received an electric shock. Some invisible force seemed to have surged through his nephew, making him impossible to hold. Panting, Harry fell forward on the hydrangea bush, straightened up, and stared around. There was no sign of what had caused the loud cracking noise, but there were several faces peering through various nearby windows. Harry stuffed his wand hastily back into his jeans and tried to look innocent. Lovely evening, shouted Uncle Vernon, who was waving at Mrs. Number 7, who was glaring behind her net curtains. Did you hear that car backfire just now? Gave Petunia and me quite a turn. He continued to grin his horrible manic way until all the curious neighbors had disappeared from their various windows. Then the grin became a grimace of rage as he beckoned Harry back towards him. Harry moved a few steps closer, taking care just to stop short of the point at which Uncle Vernon's outstretched hands could resume their strangling. What the devil did you mean by it, boy? Said Uncle Vernon in a croaky voice that trembled with fury. What did I mean by what? Said Harry coldly. He kept looking left and right up the street, still hoping to see the person who had made the cracking noise. Making a racket like a starting pistol right outside our... I didn't make that noise, said Harry firmly. Aunt Petunia's thin, horsey face now appeared beside Uncle Vernon's wide purple one. She looked livid. Why were you lurking under our window? Yes, good point, Petunia. What were you doing under our window, boy? Listening to the news, said Harry in a resigned voice. His aunt and uncles exchanged looks of outrage. Listening to the news? Again? Well, it changes every day, you see, said Harry. Don't you be clever with me, boy. I want to know what you're really up to, and don't give me any more of this listening to the news tosh. You know perfectly well your lot. Careful, Vernon, breathed Aunt Petunia, and Uncle Vernon lowered his voice so that Harry could barely hear him. That your lot doesn't get in our news. That's all you know, said Harry. The Dursleys goggled at him for a few seconds, and Aunt Petunia said, You nasty little liar. What are all those? She lowered her voice so that only Harry had to lip-read her next words. Owls doing if they're not bringing you news. Aha, said Uncle Vernon in a triumphant whisper. Get out of that one, get out of that one, boy. As if we didn't know you were getting news from all those pedestintial birds. Harry hesitated for a moment. It cost him something to tell the truth, even though his aunt and uncle could not possibly know how bad Harry felt admitting it. The owls aren't bringing me news, said Harry tonelessly. I don't believe it, said Aunt Petunia at once. Nor do I, said Uncle Vernon. We know you're up to something funny, said Aunt Petunia. We're not stupid, you know, said Uncle Vernon. Well, that's news to me, said Harry, his temper rising, and before the Dursleys could call him back, he had wheeled about, crossed the front lawn, stepped over the low garden wall, and was striding off the street. He was in trouble now. He knew it. He would have to face his aunt and uncle later and pay the price for his rudeness, but he did not very much care at the moment. He had much more pressing matters on his mind. Harry was sure that the cracking noise had been made by someone apparating or disapparating. It was exactly the sound Dobby, the house elf, made when he would vanish into thin air. Well, was it possible that Dobby was here in Privet Drive? Could Dobby have followed him here at this very moment? At this thought occurred as he wheeled around and stared down Privet Drive. But it appeared to be completely deserted again, and Harry was sure that Dobby did not know how to become invisible. He walked on, hardly aware of the route he was taking, for he had pounded these streets so often lately that his feet carried him to his favorite haunts automatically. Every few steps he glanced back over his shoulder. Someone magical had been near him as he lay among Aunt Petunia's dying begonias. He was sure of it. Why hadn't they spoken to him? Why hadn't they made contact? Why were they hiding now? And then his feeling of frustration peaked as certainty leaped away. Perhaps it hadn't been a magical sound at all. Perhaps he was so desperate for the tiniest sign of contact from the world which he belonged to that he was simply overreacting to the perfectly ordinary noises. Could he be sure it hadn't been the sound of something breaking inside a neighbor's house? Harry felt a dull sinking sensation in his stomach, and before he knew it, the feeling of hopelessness had plagued him all over summer rolled over him once again. Tomorrow morning he would be awoken by an alarm at 5 o'clock so that he could pay the owl that delivered the daily profit. But there wasn't any point to continuing to take it. Harry merely glanced at the front page before throwing it aside these days. When the idiots who ran the paper finally realized that Voldemort was back, it would be headline news, and that would be the only kind Harry cared about. If he was lucky, there would also be owls carrying letters from his best friends Ron and Hermione though any expectations he had with those letters would bring him news had long since been dashed. I can't say much about you know what, obviously. We've been told not to say anything important in case our letters go astray. We're quite busy, but I can't give you the details. There's a fair amount going on. We'll tell you everything when we see you. But when were they going to see him? Nobody seemed too bothered or with a precise date. Hermione had scribbled, "I expect we'll be seeing you quite soon," inside his birthday card. But how soon was soon? As far as Harry could tell, the vague hints in the letters, Hermione and Ron were in the same place, presumably at Ron's parents' house. He could hardly bear to think the pair of them having fun at the Burrow when he was stuck in Privet Drive. In fact, he was so angry at them that he had thrown both their birthday presents and the Honeyduke's chocolates away unopened, though he had regretted this after eating a wilting salad Aunt Petunia had provided for dinner that night. And what were Ron and Hermione busy with? Why wasn't Harry, busy? Hadn't he proved himself capable of handling much more than they? Had they forgotten all about what he had done? Hadn't it been he who entered the graveyard and watched Cedric being murdered and been tied to that tombstone and nearly killed? Don't think about that, Harry told himself sternly for the 100th time that summer. It was bad enough that he kept revisiting the graveyard in his nightmares without dwelling on it in his waking moments, too. Love you.